dogs, cats, rabbits, fish, I don't know, all different kinds of things like this. I mean, this is definitely a part of human life, whether we have pets or we don't have pets. I mean, we're definitely aware of this sort of thing. So, we're going to talk about how pets influence our lives, what sort of role we allow pets to have in our lives, what sort of concerns there are about being pet owners, about being around people who are pet owners, and so forth. So, let's get started today with Conversation Club. Really happy to have you all here today. So the first question we're going to ask is, do you have a pet? Denise, let's start with you. Do you have a pet, or have you had a pet?
Okay. Now I have no pet. But a few years ago, when I and my wife start living together, my wife has a dog, so I have experience to living with a pet.
Okay.
Also, yes.
Okay.
In common soul, and when I was even child, I have I can't remember. I have a bird. I can't. I tried later to remember how it correctly titled in English. Sorry, I forgot. So that's all.
What is it?
Parrot, as I remember. Parrot. Sorry, parrot.
A parrot.
Yes, a parrot.
Oh my goodness, a parrot. Okay,
Yes.
wow. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yes, but it was many years ago, so it's it's hard to remember much more details.
Okay.
But yes, living with a dog, it's more fresh experience.
Of course, yes. I would say that dogs, well, we'll talk about this, but I would say that dogs are probably the most active pets you can have. I mean, not, cats are pretty kind of doing their own thing most of the time. Birds are also there, fish are always there, but dogs are the ones that you've got to like physically get out and walk and do that sort of stuff. So yes, all right. Elia, what about you? Do you have a pet, or have you had a pet?
Sorry, I was mute. No, I have never got a pet because I grew up in such a family where all adults, they are somehow connected with medicine, and they think that having pet, it is dangerous for health, not very clean, because pets can have some diseases, some insects and things like that. So, but we even haven't got fish. So, but when I was very little, very young, we had a private house, and in the yard there were small tortoises. But I don't know whether they can be pets or not, but still they live in the same yard, and that was great.
Okay, all right. I'm looking at some garden tortoises right now, and yeah, I mean that's a good question. Are they considered to be pets or not? I don't know. I had pet turtles and tortoises when I was a child, and those were ones you had to go to the store and buy, and then feed them and keep them in their aquarium or let them outside and something like that. So I would say that they were pets because of the fact that you went out and had to get them. But the tortoises that I see in the yard here, I mean, I don't even know how many there are. They just kind of, they're more every season, babies and everything else. So I don't know. Nowadays, I guess I don't consider them pets. It's one of those things. Like, yeah, it's an interesting sort of thing. Cats too. I mean, is a cat a pet? If you're feeding the cat, yes. If the cat is just kind of in your yard, well, maybe it's just like a garden cat. I don't know. I don't. Yeah. So pets. I have now a dog. Who I've had for, my goodness, he's going to be 9 years old this year. So he's been with me for a while, and I've had several dogs that were the result of begging my parents for a dog for years, and they finally gave in. Before that, no. Growing up when I was really small, there weren't any pets. There were some fish that we had, maybe 3. We went through 3 fish. And then I said like the turtles and lizards and stuff like that, which I think was a compromise. Since there was no dog, we kind of said, oh, can we get a turtle instead? And like, yeah, sure, turtle. But anyway, that's just the sort of like pet situation with me. So lots of dogs, and that's pretty much about it. Next question that we have is, what do you think is the purpose of having a pet? Denise, what do you think is the purpose of having a pet?
It's a hard question to me because I never, when I was a child, a little child, it was a mostly interest because it was very interesting how to have a pet. But later, I never feeling as that I want to have a pet. But probably it's partially interesting as a companion because some social interaction needs more time and sometimes rather hard. But interaction with pet is more simpler, and it's more simpler to adopt a pet to you and you to some pet behavior. But I have no many ideas. To my mind, some people have some inner feeling to that them want to have a pet, but it's not clear for me why.
Okay, so instinctually you don't seem to, okay, all right, you don't seem to understand why. That's a completely legitimate sort of thing. Elia, what about you? What do you think? I mean, you haven't had pets. What do you think is the purpose of having a pet as someone who hasn't had pets?
Oh, I think pets can help us to avoid stress. So sometimes they can be really good true friends. But as for me, why I'm not going to have a pet, because I'm so busy with everything and with 3 children that I'm not able to look after the pets, to clean. Even when you have fish, you should clean that aquarium and things like that, because sometimes they also um, have some diseases and they simply can die, and that is really a very pity.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the comfort, but then you also mentioned the work and how they know that doesn't fit into your schedule. I don't know. I think pets, yeah, I mean, it's comfort, it's companionship. Sometimes they're practical purposes. I mean, if you're living in certain places, you might want to have a cat to chase away rats or something like that. You might want to have a dog to protect your property. Again, these are maybe more practical purposes that you see when you get out of cities, when you get out of certainly apartment life. I grew up in houses, living in houses, and there we always had space for a pet. Our lifestyle when I was a child didn't really accommodate having pets because we traveled a lot, and um, had grandparents that certainly weren't going to help out taking care of pets. I mean, if anything, they would take care of children, but not pets. And I don't know. I mean, to me, when I think about why people have pets, yes, it's companionship, friendship. It's someone to share that sort of love with if you don't have someone else. I mean, maybe for some children, it's a companion if that child doesn't have a brother or a sister, or it's a opportunity for children, brothers and sisters, to work together to take care of something else, to have that sort of responsibility. I think that's the reason why a lot of parents get pets for their children, to teach them responsibility, which is you know, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. When you have the space, when you have the time to do it. I don't know. I got my dog, this one that I have now, when I was working very, very strange hours, and it basically prevented me from having any sort of normal social life. Basically, naturally, I woke up early in the morning and I was in a situation where I was working from the middle of the afternoon until late at night, which meant that as soon as I got home from work, there was just like no time at all to like and have any sort of social life, just straight to bed. But I was available, I was free the whole morning. And what am I going to do during the morning and early afternoon when everyone I know is working? And it was just really kind of lonely. And that's why I decided maybe I should get a dog. And sure enough, it was the opportunity to spend time, to go for walks, to do these sort of things and not be alone. So for me, that was a really, you know, happy thing to do. So that companionship, that, I don't know, sense of purpose. I think you'll see that. A lot of, you know, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of elderly people will end up getting dogs. So that, yeah, it gets them out, it gets them active, it gets them walking. It gives them someone to care for, you know, if their children are grown up and gone and maybe their grandchildren are living somewhere else, so they don't see their grandchildren that much. It's an opportunity to just have that interaction and that responsibility. Again, responsibility is a word that's coming up. All right, which leads us to our next question, which is, why do you think that some people treat their pets like children? And you have 3 children, so you know how much energy and time and commitment it is to raise them. Why do you think that some people decide to treat their pets like they do children?
Because pets, they very like they mm, they're familiar to kids because, for example, in situations when the pair hasn't got any kids. So it is very good opportunity to try to have a pet, a cat or a dog. I think better the dog because you should work early in the morning, especially if it is puppy, just to I don't test each other for that very responsibility, to ability to take care, to ability not to sleep at night. I don't know, to make some injections, and I don't know, some care. So I think it's very good for testing their relationship and to see whether how much egoistic is this or that person. So in from this point of view, they are very familiar to children, and I know that sometimes when there is no opportunity to have children, that many families um, have some pets.
Yeah, okay, so like that, maybe that sort of substitute, yeah, substitute for that to take care of something and to do that sort of thing. What do you think, Denise? Why do you think that some people treat their pets like children?
Yes, I witness that cases sometimes. To me, it's a part of more global perception feature because it's more simpler to uh, accept to understand pets as a human, the other human. So uh, mm, uh, treating pets as a children is only a part of cases. In my mind. Um, so
Yeah.
I have no ideas how
Okay.
to improve this topic because
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think I kind of agree with Edia when she says, okay, you know, if people don't have children, they decide to take care of their pets like children. Although I know that there are also, I mean, people who have children, but they have the pets too, and they treat them even the same in certain ways, which is always kind of interesting too. I don't know. I think that part of it is, again, like that sort of need to take care, that need to give that sort of attention and something, and a pet to be a release for that, if that makes any sense. Um, yeah, I guess it's a psychology of some people that say that they need to dote on someone, they need to dote on something, and it's just kind of their instinct to have that sort of affection, which is kind of interesting. Of course, not all people have that, but I mean, everyone is different. People raise their children differently, and it's, the same thing with pets. People, I don't want to say raise their pets, but live with their pets in different ways. So it's an interesting thing to kind of just think about, because there are so many different ways to live life and to interact with other people and pets for that matter. What do you personally think when you see people that are treating their pets as children? What kind of feelings do you have about that sort of thing? Denise?
It's hard. I think I have no any strong feeling for such situation, but I think it's a common perception mistake, because as a probably it's a part of my professional deformation, but I often meet situation when other people try to understand, try to communicate with not a people, like pets or some computer or mechanical systems, like other people. Because as a result of evolution, social communication, social perception is more important for us for a long time. But in a modern world, it's not work so good for all situations. So to me, it's a not an exceptional case. It's a part of common behavior. But yes, to me, it seems very strange, because the most important thing with interaction with pet and with children are completely different. So
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Definitely understand what you mean. Elia, what about you? What do you think? What do you think when you see pets treated like children?
No, I can understand them because pets they are also small. So I don't know how to say it. They need to be defended from the not the surrounding. So in these cases, they are very common. So that's why they some people treat pets like children, because when you've got a pet for a long time, it really becomes the member of the family. So with its own character, with its own behavior. So yes, they treat them like children. Why? What? Why not?
Okay, sorry guys. I don't know. I couldn't unclick my my mute button there. But yeah, I guess why not? Yeah, of course, why not? Let everyone live their life the way they want to live, of course. I don't know, when I see it personally, I just think, my goodness, if only I had that time. Like if I had the time to treat my pet, pamper my pet, it would be it would be nice if I had time to pamper my pet. I love my pet, it's nice to spend time with him, but I don't know, to get him clothes and carry him around, that's just not something I have time for. So my immediate, thought is, my gosh, it's so nice. It must be so nice to have that kind of time to pamper a pet like that. All right. Uh, Next question, which is kind of an interesting one. Do you think it's easier to have a pet or a child? What do you think, Elia?
I think, of course, it is easier to have a pet because anyway it is less responsibility and anyway less feelings, of course, because different things can happen during the life and pets, they also have different life term, but when you lose pet, so of course it can't be compared with that. I don't know how to say it. So when there is something wrong with your child, it is impossibly painful. So I think it can't be comparable with pets and anything with that. And even with because you love your children, I think much most of all, even when there is something with your parents, it is not so painful when it is connected with your children. I think children the most important thing, so it can't be compared with pets.
Okay, yeah, all right. What do you think, Denise? Do you think it's easier to have children or pets?
I have no real experience to have children. Only having a pet some years ago. So to me, it's yes, it's impossible to compare because it's a completely different responsibility and a different feeling. A connection to children, to my mind, it's uh, much bigger than this pet anyway. But if trying to measure in some abstract thing like spending time and spending resources, money, something like this, it's very depends on pet. And there was situation when people having a pet which need in more time, like some kind of very active dogs or some exotic animals. But trying not to spend enough time. But on the other side, there are some pets like fish, which not need so much time. But really, to me, it's hard to compare because feeling to children will be much more uh, deep and stronger than to pet anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean there. I don't know. I mean, I think that, yeah, if you think about the long-term sort of responsibility of having pets versus children, it's more difficult, to have children because it's like a long-term sort of thing that you have to be invested in, not just your child's behavior, but also their academic performance and, like what they're able to accomplish in life. As a parent, you're responsible for that. I mean, at least you should be. At least you should have that sort of. I mean, even if you're maybe a more liberal sort of thinker, you still kind of your liberal thinking is going to have that sort of connection in that sense. Whereas with the pets, I mean, pets of course don't live as long as children do, unless, I mean, if you've got like a giant tortoise or something and it's going to live to be 100, who knows? But again, what sort of long-term responsibility are you going to have aside from keeping him safe and giving him food? But I think about that sort of thing, and yeah, that's your instinct that yes, of course, it's more difficult. The responsibility of raising a child is much greater. But I was thinking, when I think I might have mentioned this last time, maybe not. It's the whole idea of that if you have a child, you can take the child with you just about anywhere. I mean, unless it's some sort of like nightclub or something like that. Whereas if you have a pet, you can't necessarily take that pet with you to a store or the bank or something like that. Or even if you have, if you're on an airplane, for example, if you have a baby, you can fly with the baby on the airplane for free, right? If it's a domestic flight, if it's an international flight, I think you've got to pay, some percentage of the ticket fee or something like that, ticket cost. But you have to pay more to have your pet on an airplane than you do for your child to have to have your child on the airplane. So there are little things like that that are always kind of interesting that I think you don't think about. But when it comes from the sort of difficulty or ease standpoint, it kind of says that, yeah, it's not so easy to have a pet if you want to live your life as people live their lives. But if you are, just at home, then of course it's a much different situation. The next question that we have is, how do you feel about animals that are allowed inside of restaurants or stores or other places? Denise, what do you think?
I think that's good. Uh, there are two sides for this question or to this problematic. On one side, it's a question about is animal is are pets adopted well because the time when I have a dog and in Rostov where I live at the time, the most dogs I meet was not well trained or not trained at all. So there was a rather aggressive behavior between different dogs and barking much time to other people, something like this. And for such situation, it's will be not comfortable to other visitors to if anybody visit a cafe with not trained dog with that behavior. Um, but if we allow to visiting, there was more stimulus to socialize pets to understand how to control it, how to train it well. So to my mind, it's a more right way to allow maximum, but to create some rules which protect the interests of other people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds logical. I mean, logical.
Very good example. In Moscow, uh, I can't remember any places, any cafes, for example, where there is some cup with water for animal prepared. But when we was at Prague, I find such thing even in some cafes in nearby village around town. It's
Where was
not
this?
villages. We
Okay.
visit Castle. There was near 50 kilometers near Prague. I can't pronounce correctly.
Okay.
Name
Somewhere
of this
outside
place,
of
yes,
Prague.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a small restaurant, and there was a special place in a corner with a water and for animal. And there was a sign, "You pet can get a water here," something like this. So I think it's a very nice and right thing.
Yeah, I mean that is a really kind of big thing in Europe to have that sort of a free water for dogs and everything. And they have a lot of outdoor cafes in Europe and what have you. So I guess it kind of makes sense that they have that for pets. Elio, what about you? What do you think when you see pets in shops and restaurants and places like that?
Mm, So, of course, it is good when the pets have some comfortable places, especially when you mentioned, yes, when they are open, opened cafes. So I think that's okay. When there are some closed places, sometimes it can be, I think, difficult because, as Eugenius mentioned, that not all animals adopted well, so the behavior can be different. So sometimes the situations can be also different. Maybe that's why it isn't allowed in Russia to go on some social places with animals, because not even animals, but people themselves sometimes not very good, not of very good behavior. Uh, so but as for me, I don't know, because my children, especially my eldest daughter, she's afraid of dogs. Especially, I know maybe it is bad, but still the situation is so that I'm sure that she would never go somewhere where it is allowed to go with dogs. So that is problem, of course. But I know that there is another side of this problem because here in Russia, not even all restaurants it is not allowed to go there, not even with pets, but with children. So because there are different points of view, and some people they don't like when there are noises of children and things connected with all that trouble. So it is discussable, difficult question, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely when that sort of thing. I don't know. I always I mean, if I think that if you're in an outdoor cafe and the dog is on the ground and maybe there's water or something like that, I don't even think you don't even have a second thought of something like that. If the dog is like again on the ground on a leash too, not like ready to roam free. But I have seen a lot of instances when dogs are able to wander free inside of like cafes, and that to me is very strange. Sitting on chairs that of course are designed for people, that sort of thing always just makes me feel kind of weird. I mean, I think like Elia, what you were mentioning, about your medical family being kind of concerned about sanitary issues. I mean, in a restaurant, yeah, I'm definitely concerned about that sort of thing. And I'm a pet owner, but still, like, I don't want to. I feel strange when I see a pet inside. I remember I went to a quite nice restaurant with my parents last summer, and we were all just kind of shocked to see that there was a dog in the booth across from us that was sitting on the booth with like all the food there and everything. We're just thinking, you've got to be, I don't know, the world we live in, right? People love their pets. That's great. I love my pet too. I'll bring back a doggy bag from the restaurant. I don't know. um, but that sort of thing too. In Europe, I don't know if you are aware of this, guys, but Italy, it's quite big. I've noticed that people will walk their dogs inside of shopping malls. So enclosed shopping malls, people are walking with their dogs, and it's just I don't know. To me, it's kind of weird to see dogs that are being walked indoors. I don't know why. It's just for me. You take a dog for a walk outside, fresh air, the ability to do what you have to do outside, not inside. But again, this is something that we're seeing more and more of, and you're seeing more places that are allowing animals inside, which is always kind of interesting. I mean, I always thought that, no dogs allowed. I don't know if you guys remember Charlie Brown and Snoopy, those comics, and then the cartoons and everything else. That was the sort of recurring issue for Snoopy. No dogs allowed, although Snoopy is not really like a normal dog. He writes novels and sleeps on top of his doghouse. And, it's just like that sort of thing. It's no dogs allowed was always the sort of thing that we understood was the situation, but now they are allowed, which is to me just strange. Getting to our next question, I don't know if you read the material, watched the video material too. Veterinary medicine. All right, how do you guys feel about modern veterinary medicine where dogs are being treated for the same ailments as humans? And I mean, quite serious things in certain circumstances, with all of these surgeries and anesthesia and all these other things that go on. What do you feel about all of this medicine for animals? Edia, what do you think?
When we've got medicine for people, why not to have good medicine for animals? Especially when there are some people who is going to pay for it, who is eager to invest in that. I think it is normal. I think it is good.
Okay. What about you, Denise? What do you think about this modern veterinary medicine?
Animals, especially some mammalias like a dog, cats, or uh, is close to people by its biochemistry, even genetically. We have, as I remember, more than uh, 18 or slightly small, the same part of genetics with dogs, for example. So it's normal to use the same medicine if it's possible. There are some differences, but there are many very close things to one side. I think the problem only in traditions and historically, because where is how to correctly pronounce it? Veterinary or veterinary in English? I can't do.
For what?
I mean, the stress, I think.
Veterinary at first, okay. Because historically, veterinary was not about pets, but about horses, cows, and other animals, which was not perceived as a pet, but more as an object of the time. But now, many people understand and interact with his pets as human. So it's a logical step to use the same methods and the same quality of medicine for pets. So if some people who have pets ready to spend the same amount of money to provide a human-like quality medicine, it's not a bad thing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is an interesting sort of thing. I mean, what that all is. When I think about this modern medicine, I mean, veterinary medicine in general. I mean, I personally don't go to the doctor a lot. I mean, I'm just kind of a more, well, thankfully I haven't had to. I mean, when I do, I've gone and I've gotten the medicines I need and everything, but I try to take a more holistic approach to life and, again, knock on wood, it works. So, when I see that people are spending a lot of money on their pets, it's something that I see as almost like a money-making scheme. And I don't know. I mean, I know that in Russia it was not quite so much of an expense because I had taken my dog to the veterinarian there in Moscow several times for big issues. Like he'd eaten poison and he needed help. He needed serious help. But it was still affordable to take him there, even with these injections and everything else. Whereas that same treatment in the United States would have cost a lot of money, like an unbelievable amount of money. And this is why in the US they even have pet insurance because of how expensive it can be to treat your animal. And again, it's become this business. And when I see that they have these different treatments that are offered, or when maybe pets are getting too much medical treatment, it really does make you wonder, what is the ultimate goal of having this? Is it really advancement? Is it just maybe the sake of making this sort of work in certain circumstances, maybe even making work for insurance companies if they're, ready to provide this health insurance. But that video was quite interesting. I mean, all the different sort of things that are able to be done for pets, the therapies and everything else. It's not just life-saving, which is always what I always thought was the vet. Like, you take your dog to the vet in an emergency situation or, to get shots. But these sort of routine procedures were not really things that were done before, and now they are. So again, I guess it's just, as we were mentioning, is people are treating their pets more like children. And this is something you saw in the video too. It's a lot like pediatrics when people, want to be able to do everything they can to make this pet that they love feel better. This pet that can't talk and express what is wrong, it really is something that just draws on this these feelings and this whole psychology that you've got to help this defenseless creature out as ever you can at whatever cost. So again, I mean, it's great that some animals can be saved and their lives can be made better, but then we also see this maybe in certain circumstances just like too much of it, if that makes any sense. Like And it's not just, in my opinion, for pets, but for people too, if you look at some of these things that are done. But again, that's another topic altogether, modern medicine in general. What do you think is the balance between pet owner rights and the rights of people who own pets? This gets back to, where pets are allowed, and that sort of thing. Maybe even if you want to rent a flat, rent an apartment, rent some sort of property, and you're told you can't because you have a pet. I mean, what do you think is the balance between all of this? Denise, what do you think?
I think balance. I think the most right thing is to allow this balance appears in some natural way. Because if, for example, if nobody want to provide an apart and allow to live with a pet in this apart, only one or small amount of apart can provide it for a higher price, for example. And after some time, the significant part of lots will provide ability to live with pets. It's a way how market works. So it's more. I think it's not a good thing to be driven by government, because trying to provide additional rules or to limit any rules as a laws is a bad thing. But it will work good only for rather wealth and modern society. I think there is no additional, should be no additional limits or rules over existed. So it's not a big difference why there are many noises or some people, children, animals, or something else. It's not important. It's uncomfortable, and it's a bad thing if will be a noise everywhere, for example. So if a dogs behave or are aggressive to other people, it is not a big difference if any man will interact aggressively to other people. I think there is no necessary in some special limits or additional. It's more about common questions of right behavior of people interactions.
Yeah, that, just respect and being able to interact in a way that everyone can kind of just be satisfied with the whole situation. Elliot, what do you think? What sort of balance do you think there should be between pet owner rights and the rights of people who don't own pets?
Of course, there should be some certain balance, and I think it is, because when you owner of a flat apartment, when you allow to rent it to a person or to a family with pets, for example, cats or dogs, you should understand that some furniture and some, I don't know, some walls and things what inside can be spoiled in natural way. So not for certain, but it can be. So that's why the price should be high, and it is understandable. So I think it is balanced, yes. It should be balanced, and it is good.
Yeah, balance. I mean, I don't know. I think that you've got to have maybe boundaries and limits. And if it's, say, okay for a pet to be at an outside cafe, that's great. But like maybe there should be a no pet section inside the cafe, like you used to have with smoking. Remember, smoking section, non-smoking section. And eventually, it's interesting, isn't it? If you compare smoking, non-smoking with pet, no pet. Before you had a choice, you're given a choice if you're going to go to the smoking section or non-smoking section. And now, what do you have? It's like there is no smoking section, right? It's all non-smoking. Whereas on the other side, you've got more and more places that are just opening their establishments to have pets inside. I mean, we're talking again mostly about dogs. I haven't think I've ever seen like a cat in a cafe, but that's neither here nor there. But it's that sort of thing, I mean, what are we expecting from ourselves? What do we expect from other people? If you do bring your pet into some establishment, I mean, should you let that pet be on the chairs, where other people are going to be sitting? Maybe the next people who come have an allergy, how would you even know? Again, I think it's just maybe just having some sort of mutual sort of understanding, respect. I think leashes are important. I really do. I think that even small, cute little dogs shouldn't be allowed to roam free, because you never know. I mean, that's not really considerate or courteous. I think if you're going to be taking your pet to other places, which clearly people are doing, you can't really limit their ability to do that. You just have to maybe kind of expect that they're going to be decent about it, if that makes any sense. I think that's the sort of thing. Just, being courteous. That's what it comes down to. Do you think it is fair for pets to be required to go through training courses for people to own them? Should that be, children have to go to school, should pets have to go to school too? Elliot, what do you think?
I think yes, that's a good idea because really it is involving, it is interesting, and your pets should be educated well. So that's and I don't know, it's the matter of being pride of something. So being involved in some society, and really they make great shows, and they're very interesting to watch them. So I think yes, I think we should adopt our pets too.
Should it what?
Should educate, not adopt.
Educate.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Denise? What do you think? Should pets have to go to school too?
I completely agree with Elia. I think it's a very important and both sides process, because not all people who own some pets understand its behavior and its needless, its instincts. At the other side, all pets which spend much time in society should be adopted to the society. Behavior should be adopted. And it's only one thing, it's a training of pets and educating of its owners.
Yes, owners, exactly.
To me, it was a big contrast because in Russia, there are many dogs which are not well trained, and many owners who not to understand why and how dogs behave and to interact. And it's another side in Europe. I meet many situations where a dog's behavior was completely different and rather unexpected to me, because most time when I see the two big dogs meet one each other in a half of situation in Moscow, then start behave aggressively. On the other side, in Paris and in Vienna, in such situation, dogs or totally ignore each other, or starting some light interactions like to understand how themselves or some not aggressive behavior. And it's result only of training and adoption.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, we expect so much from our children, and when it comes to school and behavior and everything else. And for example, if if a child is running around in a public place or like a restaurant or something like that, that would be completely unacceptable. Whereas you've got dogs that are oftentimes barking when they're in very crowded public places and pulling on their owners, with their holding the leashes and everything else. And actually, just this weekend, I was in the city and walking, and we were waiting for the stoplight, to turn. And there was a dog that was just, I mean, he wasn't full grown, so he was still maybe a puppy, but still not a small puppy. He was a big puppy, maybe getting up to the year mark, a German Shepherd dog. And he was just jumping and barking and growling, and the owners didn't have control over this dog. And I'm just thinking, this is so irresponsible, really, to be going in a very busy public place on a weekend. I mean, I understand that animals need to be socialized and everything else, but I'm just thinking, I don't know, maybe you should be doing this with a trainer, because it didn't look like either of these people had control over the animal and weren't taking the steps to like try to establish that with some sort of treat or reward system, which trainers do stress, and trainers are much firmer when they're doing it than owners usually are. It's kind of the point of having a trainer. So I think that's the sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, it would be maybe a good idea to have this as maybe I don't know, encouragement. Of course, it depends too, because some people register their animals, others don't. It's one of those things. It's not like it's universal. Like there's universal schooling. It's not like there's universal pet ownership guidelines and what have you. Which gets to the point, what or who do you think teaches responsible pet ownership? Denise, who do you think teaches that? Like, do people learn? Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question correctly. What person, or what way I can understand what is the goal of question. Who is some?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the idea of like, where do people learn this? I mean, is it something that you learn when you're growing up? I mean, how to be a responsible pet owner? Is it something that people learn as they own a pet? What do you think? I mean, like, how do you think that people learn
At one
how
side,
to be? Yeah.
got it. I understand probably. At one side, I think all pets, like a dog, who can interact in outer society, not like a silent fish in a room, should be trained. And there are many dog schools, and it's a good place where, additionally to training a dog, owners can study a dog's behavior and can study more about its characters, its interactions, its instincts, and so on. But on other side, it's probably uh, mm, a government task to provide some laws which should make owners responsible for pets, not only for pet behavior but in common. Because there are many wagon dogs in Moscow, for example. I don't know how to write in English. It's dog without no owners, which lives anywhere on the street. And there is no really responsibility to people who take a puppy, for example, and then understand that it need many time, many responsible, and take it away. So, for example, I know that in some other countries there are very strict laws. If you take a dog, you're responsible for it, and if you can't live with, can't keep, can't leave this dog, you should pay a big tax to take it away for a special place. And it will generally increase responsibility, and people starting to think before owning a dog. So I think it's a two side. One
Yeah.
side is a dog school or other training school, and the other side is a right laws to increase responsibility of the animal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's true. What do you think, Elia? What do you think? I mean, how do you think people learn how to be these pet owners, responsible pet owners?
Of course, we should be responsible, and I remember the words of Saint-Exupéry that they are responsible for all whom we trained, whom we taught. I don't know how is it in English, but you understand, yes, what I mean.
What do you mean?
The words from Saint-Exupéry, The Little Prince, that we are responsible for all whom we trained or whom we taught.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we're all responsible. This is true. Yes.
I don't remember the original words, and I don't know how they sound in English. But I think that yes, we are responsible for everyone who is more more little, and whom we thought something.
True. True. I mean, yeah, this whole idea of responsibility. I mean, it is a big kind of issue, and it's not just pets, it's life. I think it's a very good point you make, Elia. It's a very good point you make. It's a matter of so much of this sort of stuff. I don't know. I just think that responsibility in general is such an important thing to learn. And where do we teach it? I think we learn it from what we see. And I think that's sort of why it's so important, not just with pet ownership, but with everything, just having that sort of accountability and what have you. So this has been an interesting topic, you guys. I mean, even for usually people who have, it's interesting to talk about this sort of stuff with people who have pets, but you guys don't. And it's still a very interesting topic. But every topic is very interesting with us. Oh, here we go. You become responsible forever for what you have tamed. Yes. This is true. Very, very good point. Very good point here.
This is quote from book.
The Prince, Little Prince.
Yes.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone. So do we have any ideas for a topic for next time?
Yes.
Okay.
I find a good list of topics, so I place it chat. It's for next lesson. For next lessons, for example, we can discuss books. Reading books is it's reading of books actual now. Way how we read books, for example, reading paper books or reading from screen. First idea. And
okay. So book reading culture?
Yes, yes.
That's interesting. I like that. What about you, Elliot?
Yes, I think that's a great topic. Thank you very much, Denise.
That sounds
okay. So also we can look for topic to other discussions. So I send a link where I find ideas.
All right, this is good. But yeah, I like books. Let's talk about books then. Modern book reading culture.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much. It was great talking to you. And we will then meet the same time next week talking about books. Is everyone reading a book right now? Maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Ellie, are you reading a book?
In Russian, yes.
Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter what language you're reading a book in, as long as you're reading a book. Okay, so we're all readers. That's good. We're all reading books. That's a big plus because these are all different things to talk about, because it's, again, time and having that sort of ability to do that sort of thing. Reading, it's a very important thing to do. So getting back to the pets, thanks so much for this talk today. It was great, you guys. And hear you next week.
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Bye bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.